everyone. It's your girl, Miracle Sims, and you're watching the GSL Talk Show. Tonight, we're going to be chatting with Miss Marin Canaday, and she has an amazing testimony that you do not want to miss. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the GSL Talk Show. As you all can see, I am here with the lovely Marin Canaday. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Well, welcome to the GSL Talk Show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I'm glad to have you as well. Please tell us where you are and a little bit about yourself.
I am in Clovis, California. And I'm a mother of 3. I'm a stay-at-home mom. My husband's a principal at an elementary school, and I'm just loving life right now.
Awesome. Listen, I love that. I mean, so it sounds like you good marriage, good family. It sounded like things are good.
Definitely. My whole family lives in Clovis or around the area, and it's just a blessing. With my mental illness, you need a strong base. And I feel like I've got my family surrounding me and just supporting me through it all.
That is awesome and amazing. I would love to hear more about that because I'm sure people are probably like confused. They're like, what do you mean? So hopefully we'll learn more about that and what you were referring to. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that, you are at peace and seemingly have joy and all these different things, especially in today's times, because we know that, marriage, family, all that stuff is looked down upon, frowned upon. And so to hear someone say that they are blessed, and I say highly favored and all that, I'm glad to hear it.
Yes, so, absolutely.
Yeah, shout out to your family as well. Hey, family. Awesome. So I think the audience may be wondering, like, what would you like to share about your mental illness?
Yes, I have lived with OCD, which is Obsessive-Compulsive Disorder. And I've lived with it since childhood, but I didn't know what it was until I was 32, actually. As a child, I would have intrusive thoughts of having to behave just right. And if I ever made a mistake, or if I ever did something that I knew was wrong, I just had this overwhelming sense of shame and fear, and the intrusive thought that you're a terrible person would just continue to hound me day in and day out. And then it moved to germs. I was afraid that my germs would kill someone, and that's a heavy burden to carry as a child. I thought that if I shared a snack, my germ would carry on that snack and that person might die. If I touched somebody, maybe bumped them, they might have my germs and end up in the hospital. It was heavy to carry as a child, and it's carried into adulthood in different ways. But that's what I've carried. And once again, it's obsessive-compulsive disorder, and it's intrusive thoughts that just won't go away.
Well, wow. I mean, you're here to educate us today, obviously, and everything like that, because I've heard of, they also call it OCD, correct?
Yes.
So I've heard of OCD, and I think the most understanding or a little bit of glimpse that I know is like, I hear about, everything needs to be clean, or everything needs to be just so. And then obviously, I'm sure people are like, familiar with Monk and things like that.
Right. Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. Yes. And it's
outside of that, I'm like, I don't know much. So,
that was what I knew about it as a child. It was, you wash your hands too much, or you check the door repeatedly, or everything had to be just so. And so when some of my intrusive thoughts were not about those issues, it kind of masked what it really was. And so I didn't know, like I said, until I was adult, what I was fighting, because with OCD, the intrusive thoughts can be about anything. It's not just having to have things just right. It can be many of my episodes, I call them, were actually about religion. And is my God and my religion the true religion? Am I really going to heaven if I believe that Jesus Christ died on the cross and conquered sin? And I wanted to know for sure that I was going to heaven. But I wasn't just willing to accept it written in the Bible. The intrusive thought was, well, everybody has a holy book. All religions have a holy book. How do you know that this one is the right one? And so I really wanted a sign from God, that this is true. This is the way. This is what you should believe. And this is going to get you to heaven. And so I really called out to God one night because these fears were just tormenting me. I was searching the internet for all sorts of, different religions. And, Lord, I grew up in a Christian home. If this is truly you, I need a sign. I need you to show me that undeniably this is from you. Satan can't, because I truly believe in Satan's, especially with my mental illness, the intrusive thoughts. I need help to know that you are the one true God. And the next morning I woke up and in my inbox, there was a devotional, and the verse for the day was Exodus 14:14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. And as I went through the remainder of my episode, he just proved himself again and again and again. And he just showed me with, like I said, devotional songs on the radio, that I've got you and that I am the one true God. And this is very real. The Bible is not just made up stories. It all happened. And this is me. And I love you unconditionally. And I want to use you for my kingdom.
Wow. So I definitely have never heard to that magnitude in regards to it, intruding your belief system and whatnot. And again, I mean, obviously I'm very, as they say, green to this conversation. So I mean, I think anything you share with me, you're probably like, wow, I did not know.
Yeah, absolutely.
That, but I appreciate you sharing that, because I think, again, people go through life and they deal with things. And like you said, you didn't know until your adult life, like what it was. It didn't get quote unquote diagnosed or anything. I know I was kind of wondering earlier on, like what is your earliest memory or the first time you, but it seems like it's something that's been throughout your whole life where you probably can't even pinpoint what the first thing was, huh?
Well, you know what? That's funny because I can pinpoint the first because the first memory I have with it, like I said, it was about behaving just right. And if I did anything wrong, I felt just this incredible shame, and I had to tell on myself, and I had to be in trouble, and I had to pay for that crime, I felt like. And so I was in kindergarten, and I had my fingers on the table, and I slipped my fingers down, and my middle finger was up. And I felt like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. That means a bad word. I don't even know what it is because I'm in kindergarten, but I know that is the terrible thing. And so I had to tell my teacher, and she was like, not really understanding what I was trying to tell her and what the big deal was. But I do remember that was my first memory with OCD.
Wow. Okay. So now people, I don't know what people are going to think, right? But I'm wondering, like, if someone's like, oh, well, maybe it was her parents, like maybe they were just strict and just taught you, like, would you say that's where some of this came from? Or do you think, like, no, this was just the thing that, like, what made you feel like well, because it seems like both of those things that you've shared just now, it kind of goes back to, I say just discipline, but I don't know how else to say
expectations
here.
Maybe.
Yeah, like were certain expectations put on you as a child, or as they were maybe teaching you about faith and whatnot, like did those things just really just
Right. Yes. I think it was, I grew up in the church and I knew right from wrong. And
mhm,
my parents, um, we were in church on Sunday, we were in church on Wednesday, we were, any function we were there. And I
mhm,
feel like I was taught the moral, base of Christianity, and I just took it to heart. And I had
mhm,
a very tender conscience. And I feel
mhm,
like a lot of it was internal. Yes,
mhm,
my parents taught me, right and wrong and encouraged me to be the best that I could be.
mhm,
But they didn't know really what was going on inside of me and how I
mhm,
was interpreting what they were telling me and what I was hearing at church.
mhm,
It was a lot of, okay, well, I need to be perfect. And
mhm,
um, even as it goes to grades in school, I need to be perfect. And if I ever get a B, if I ever get a C, that's unacceptable. And I need to
mhm,
be this perfect person. And so
mhm,
in school, I ended up being a valedictorian in both high school and in college. And
mhm,
it was a sign, though, that something was off, something was wrong, because I took it too seriously. It was shameful if I didn't. And my parents
mhm,
came back to me later and said, what made you feel like you had to do that? Because they offered to throw me a B party, excuse me, a B party if I ever got a B, because they saw that I
mhm,
was just taking it way too seriously.
mhm,
And I said, you always said to give your 100%. And to me, 100% means you get the A. You study all night, as much as you possibly can. You never put your book down. You sleep on the book so that you can absorb the information um, in order to get the A. And so I just took it way too far.
That's very interesting. I feel like even as I'm listening, I'm thinking about like my childhood as well, and it's just one of those things where I feel like the enemy will use anything to try to separate us from God. You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
because on one hand, those things that you just shared, like it pushed you to be great, right? It pushed you to be, valedictorian and all these great titles and grades and things of that nature. But at the same time, it was also that thing tormenting you. It was also that thing that was, making you not saying not feeling enough, but maybe to a certain extent because you didn't feel
Enough. Yeah,
enough, so you had to do more, or whatever.
absolutely.
And the enemy will try to use anything to come between us and God. And
Right.
I already started at that young age with you, right? And to turn the beautiful message of Christ, or whatever the case is, the teachings and the things like that, sounds like to use that thing to maybe try to form a wedge. Because then you mentioned in your adult life, you're debating the whole thing. You're like, well, and you're
Right.
like, I need to know. Now, on one hand, again, that's not necessarily bad, right? Because I
Right.
do feel like God wants us to ask the questions, and God wants us to, He's drawing us nearer to Him as we do that, right? Go through our journey
Right.
and figure it out. But on the flip side, when you're dealing with the other things, I can see how it can be also, seen as a negative thing because you're like, oh, I just want to probably just live. I just want to just be
Right.
without, you know.
Intrusive
So, I
thoughts.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so, because who knows, like, for example, if it kept going on and then you never found peace with it,
Right.
I mean, I'm sure we hear all kinds of alternatives of what that looks like, and I'm sure
Right.
you don't want to imagine, and things
Yeah.
like that. And so not to say where are you now? Because I mean, you started off by telling us where you are now, right?
Right.
So what helped you get to where you are now in regards to, I mean, I know you shared about, God revealing himself to you and everything
Hmm.
like that. Do you think that was the crossroad moment for you to find some peace, or was it something else that happened?
Yeah, it wasn't immediate.
Mhm,
When God gave me that verse, I was still very much in the thick of it. And so I would almost wave that verse in front of me like a sword, trying to ward off the enemy. Um,
mhm,
but you have to start believing the words. in order for them to mean something and to really fight off the enemy. And I didn't believe at first because I thought that God was trying to sink me by giving me OCD. The trust between us was broken because I felt like if God was truly loving, how could I have a mental illness? How could I be created this way? And so he ended up giving me a vision for a book. And I wrote that book in about 30 minutes, sat down and just busted out a book. And it's a children's book. And it's about my OCD. And then I just felt this on my heart that I needed to do something with this book. This message needed to be told. It was clearly not my message that I would just sit down and write a book. And so I reached out, and the first person I Googled, very professional, I know, but the first publisher that I Googled accepted it. And the person that I sent it to was actually OCD herself. And then they sent me back publishing prospects and said that, you know, there was a fee because they're a hybrid publisher, a little bit, but somewhere in between self-publishing and the traditional publishing. So there was going to be a fee. And God had just happened to provide that a few months prior, that we had this money we were just sitting on. And I started to truly believe that God still loved me and still had a purpose for me, not in spite of my OCD, but because of my OCD, that he could use my story to help others.
Well, to God be the glory. I'm glad that you were able to, you know, I guess see that, figure that out. He revealed that to you. And that's, I think at the end of the day, we all have to remind ourselves that we are here for a purpose, you know, and we are here for the next person. You know, in this case, you're referring to the next young child. Who knows? I mean, maybe the adult book is coming around the corner. I have no clue. But you know, because it's a real thing that you live with, and some people don't acknowledge faith at all. You know, when it comes to things like this, they like to leave it separate or whatever the case is. But you know, a lot of times this is what we need. Jesus does fill that gap, that empty void. And, you know, it's just one of those things. Again, I haven't read your book. I don't know, you know, if you refer to faith at all in it, but because you are a woman of faith, right? That message is still getting out as well, alongside of the book. And so, you know, I just got to hear more. I mean, you know, I'm on hush so I can hear some more.
Yeah, no, the book is about, it's not faith-based at all, but I'm so excited that I'm able to talk about my faith openly because it was so much involved in what came, you know, before it and even after it. It's about a little girl, and she has this monster on her shoulder. And as she goes through her day, this little monster is always there whispering in her ear. And I almost, you know, and as a Christian woman, I see it as the devil sitting on my shoulder. But as a, you know, an author, I thought, well, let's make it a little monster talking to you constantly, giving you that doubt, that fear, that what if this happens? And then as she starts to listen, the monster gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it's like her size and she can't not, you know, ignore him any longer. And then she has a moment where she goes to her doctor, and the doctor reminds her, you know, this is not really the way that it appears. And that stage of the really big monster for me can last for months to even years of just being hounded by this huge monster. It's all that I can see. And then truth has always come through, you know, Exodus 14:14, the Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still was a freeing moment. And there's been many others. He used the song by Zach Williams, Fear is a Liar for me. I used to go to the radio and turn on my Christian radio station, and that song would be playing over and over and over again until I finally started believing that God was speaking to me and that this fear that I was having was truly a lie. And so once that moment of truth comes, the monster starts getting smaller and smaller and smaller until, you know, it never really goes away. It's always going to be there, but there's hope. You don't have the little girl is empowered to ignore it and to go about her day like, you know, normal, where there's that little voice is there, but you can turn and look at it and say, yeah, it's nice that you have an opinion, but God is God and he is on the throne and I'm going to listen to his little whisper instead of your shout in my ear.
Listen, as you speak, I'm over here just, I guess spiritually, like just running around the room right now. Like what a powerful book this is, because even in spite of the OCD, right? We are dealing with this thing like every day, all day, right? Yes. All of us, to a certain extent. And we are dealing with the naysayer on our shoulder, you know, and sometimes we feel like maybe it's us, right? We're saying things against ourselves, you know, but there is a inner monologue, or however you want to look at it, going on. And unfortunately, some people do lean into it, and then they do have it grow and grow and grow, and they can't see anything else. And so this sounds like an amazing book. You know, this sounds like it's amazing on a lot of levels, because yes, okay, of course, we're spiritual minded, so we think of faith, and that's why I'm like over here like, this is good, you know. Yes. But outside of faith, even just understanding that truth will set you free, which is also still faith. But you know, at least that truth, right, will be something to encourage and inspire, and like you say, give hope at the end of the day. And you can ignore it. You can, you know, understand that I don't have to receive that or any of that type of stuff. And so hopefully, you know, it does encourage and inspire the kids to not lean into those negative thoughts and things like that. And however they may look like, you know, maybe it's the shoulder or the monster on the shoulder in the book, but you know, maybe it's something else in the person's real life. But I think this sounds amazing. So what's the name of the book?
The book is my book is called My Little Monster, A Story About OCD.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. It's a beautiful book. Very nice. Little teasing monster. Then he purple. I like it. Okay. Look, I don't, well, you probably don't want to show any of the inside. I was going to say, can you show us when it got big?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't mind at all. Let me find him when he's really big.
Oh, man. So who is the illustrator of the book, by the way? Look at that.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah. His name is Agus Prahago, and I've never met him. I was connected with him through my publisher, and he's actually going to be illustrating my second book, which is being worked on at the moment. And this book is a little, well, of course, different, but it's the same characters. It's the monster and the little girl. And the little girl is healthy at first, and she's able to ignore her monster, and she just goes about her day, and there's some humor involved with the little monster being left behind. And then she starts to listen, and he starts getting bigger and bigger, and she is crying out for help from family, from friends, from support people, and telling them what kind of help would be most effective for her. You know, don't think I'm silly. This monster is very real. Please help me when I come to you again and again for reassurance. I am listening, and I will get healthy again one day, but I just need you to be patient with me. And so I'm really excited about it. I'm not sure when it's going to be coming out yet. I don't have a release date yet, but it's in the works.
Well, awesome. It sounds like we need to be on the lookout for it. And I love that as well, that you have continued the story. So on one hand, I was thinking that you were going to maybe say, oh, we're going to have the same book, but maybe it's a little boy instead or something like that, which I don't know. You're welcome if you use that. But anyway. But That's so true, because we think that we get through something, right? And we think that
Right.
it's done. And that's not the truth. At the end of the day, it's a more powerful message and more truth-giving message to help people understand that, even with Christ, right, we still can go through the thing. It's just we look at it differently as a
Absolutely.
believer, and we still have hope as a believer, and we can kind of maybe even brush it off or laugh at it, as a believer. But that doesn't change the fact that the thing will still go, and the enemy will still be up to their old little tricks of doing the
Right.
same type of stuff, And so,
Absolutely.
again, powerful message soon to come. We got to be on the lookout for this book, man.
Yes, it's called The Very Best Me.
Okay. Look, I don't know, is this a series coming out? Like, what is your plan for this character and things like that? Do you have more down the line, or do you have like another something else you're working on?
I had only written the 2. When I got the vision for the first one, I sat down soon after that and I just wrote out a second one. And that's what I have for right now, but I'd like to do more. I have gotten feedback that there is a need, that the people who struggle with this are very excited to see their thoughts in a book and encouragement that somebody who is struggling with this, and I'm very much not over this. I still struggle with intrusive thoughts. I've just learned that Christ is on my side, and he has promised me that he's gonna get me through this. And before, when I didn't have that, it was terrifying because everything was on my shoulders. I had to get myself through this. I had to get myself out of this. But now I just have this strong trust that God's going to get me through it. And it's probably going to be there for the rest of my life. But I have this, hope and excitement that God's going to get me through. And so for somebody to see that in a book and know that somebody is fighting this right along beside them and is making it and has hope and can, do it. I think that's very encouraging.
Wonderful. I was going to ask you too, like, how has it been received? Like, when you, I'm sure you maybe shared it with children, maybe you've read story times and then, things of that nature. So like how, like, what are the type of things do they say to you after?
Yeah, this is how I shared it with my own children. It was very freeing for me because my children did not know about my OCD until 32 probably. So they were young, probably about 4, 6, and 8. But because it was a little monster, it made it more accessible to them, because children are always afraid of monsters. And this little monster is purple and he's kind of cute, but he's intimidating. So to them, they were like, "Mom, is it really on your shoulder?" And I said, "Well, you can't see it, but yes, there's this voice on my shoulder that is intimidating me." And it helped them to understand, a lot of my thoughtfulness, a lot of my being lost in thought, I should say. And I can just openly tell them, "Hey, I'm kind of struggling right now. My little monster's voice is really, is really screaming at me. Can you give me a moment?" And I actually had an uncle who was possibly OCD, who took his life. And the children knew that they had an uncle who had taken his life. And it helped me talk about that with them and explain, this little monster is very overwhelming, but he didn't have help like I did. He didn't have the psychiatrist, the therapist, the medication, the pastor, the family support. He had family, but because I'm able to come out and talk about it in such a way and be open about it and share about it, it's just so freeing. And you don't have to be fearful about that with Mama.
Yes. Yes. Oh man, that's amazing as well. Like I was kind of just thinking about, general children, like if you were at a library or something, but how powerful this can be as a tool, like you just mentioned, to explain to a child, maybe not only one that could be dealing with it, but then, one that aren't dealing with it and parents are dealing with. I think that's amazing and great. And I'm sorry to hear about your uncle, and things like that. And I guess that's kind of what I was referring to earlier when I said, I know that the alternative and everything could be that, you had the monster on your shoulder talking to you, and you eventually either just want to get rid of it or you just want to, just give up or whatever the case is.
Right.
And that's amazing that you can explain even deeper that, see, these are things that mommy has in place. Mommy has you, and, different things like that to encourage me and give, help me through my situation that some people don't have. Because that's true. Like, again, if people feel like they don't have the support or whatever the case is, anything can happen. Like I don't know exactly what, I had a cousin, I'm not sure like what his situation was, but to go to his funeral and see like all the people that was there, right? All of his coworkers came, and he probably didn't realize he had as much support and that he would affect so many people because he allowed that thing to overpower and
and the silence, the having to hide it, like you said, you don't know how much support you have. And so I felt like when God gave me this book to talk about, and I had lived in silence before this, my own siblings didn't know that I had something like OCD. And so God was calling me to start talking about it. And it wasn't just for other people. It was for me to heal. And every time that I talk about it, there's a little bit more healing. And so I feel like for my uncle, if he had been able to talk about it, he would have known, the support that he really did have and maybe just didn't realize it.
Yes, there is so much power in our testimony. I think that's why the enemy tries to silence us, right? Like I feel like I grew up with that same thing where it was like, I look back on it now and I see clearly where the enemy tried to silence me. Oh, because like different things just in my life, lots of stuff's going on, basically, long story short. But it's not about me right now. It's not my interview. But I mean, I guess if I just share a teeny bit, I just say that like when there were things that I would take to heart, right? Being told to stay in a child's place, right? Being told to, or when I said something, it seemed like it would just be a big issue. But then my younger sister could go around, I felt like could say anything. And I'm like, how is this happening? But not knowing that, in my heart and mind, I feel like that's a spiritual attack from the enemy to get me to be quiet, I had to find alternative ways to deal with my thoughts and things. So I had to just kind of, I started journaling and all these things. Once God be the glory, because it helped you be a writer today. But then, it just was like, I know I can't speak because it's going to be an issue. So, and then to now be here on this show, right, and talking all the time, and I see now, right. Why the enemy tried to share me up years ago, I had all this in me, right? But so that's the thing. I'm glad that you, have, the peace now. You're able to share. You're able to be a voice for the voiceless, for the others that are out here still suffering in silence. And I'm glad that, to God be the glory, because it obviously could be an alternative, way. Everything could have went in a way. And so, yeah, I'm glad to hear, this powerful testimony of
thank you
and everything like that. So when it comes to your husband and everything like that, so were you already married when you figured this out, or was it like you are like how was that process, and then how does he assist with it?
So I struggled with OCD all the way up to high school, my senior year. And then in college, I got a 10-year break. I don't know why or how. I went for 10 years without OCD thought patterns bothering me. And so I thought that I was free and that I would become this strong, confident person. I was sick of being afraid. And I was ashamed of who I had been because I knew that this fear had been very much a part of me. And so I wanted to be this strong, confident woman. And I joined I got a scholarship to be on the volleyball team, a collegiate volleyball team. I went to a new church and I met my husband. And we got married while I was in college. I was juggling school and volleyball and, husband life. And I was doing well and I was thriving. And then I had 3 children and it just was wonderful. It was hard, but things were going great. And then when my youngest turned 1 was when my next adult episode hit. Well, my first adult episode hit. And so my husband and I were already together. And I remember coming to him and saying, I am not okay right now. Something's going on. And he's like, oh, you're fine. You're fine. There's nothing. You're okay. And turn on your Christian radio station. You're going to be all right. And it was just, no, there's something going on. And so we looked into, a psychiatrist and therapist and got the ball rolling.
Okay. Well, glad that he was there with you,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
everything. That's kind of crazy. I mean, so you said 10 years of peace, 10 years not worried about it, things like that, and came back. But regardless, I mean, well, we see why one reason it came back so you can help some people,
Right, absolutely.
Help some people and get inspired for this book, But like, how does that make you feel? Like, because I know you did kind of mention that you're like, man, not say angry at God about it. You didn't say those words, right. But like, did you kind of look at God and be like, this was gone and now it's back, and that, did you have a moment of like that type of frustration? Or
absolutely frustration. Things were going great. What is this? Why is this back? And I just, the first adult episode that hit, I felt, this feels familiar. This feels familiar with this little thing on my shoulder and whispering to me. I'm not quite sure what it is. The second adult episode was very much fighting for hope. I can't believe this is back a second time. I thought I conquered it last time. I thought I was done with this. I was strong. I had learned, to trust in God. Second time, it was like, oh man, Lord, are you still good? Are you still loving? How could this happen? And that's when those thoughts were really hounding me. And that's when he gave me that verse.
Okay. Now, so do you feel like, because I know we're quick to look at God and be like, Lord, why did you do this? Da, da, da.
Right.
Like, do you feel like, because again, I feel like things happen, and I feel like perhaps it's the enemy using things to, get us off track, because he knows, he might not know everything, but he knows a little something like, right. Oh, this is coming around the corner. Like, wait a minute, things about to get set up for her to do a book. Oh no, you know what I mean? Whatever.
Yes.
And then God used that thing, that very thing that the enemy is trying to use against us to set us up for the next thing. And then we still do it and whatnot. But so like, I guess I'm wondering, because it could be a bit of both. It's like, okay, God, you're the divine planner. You planned everything. It's you, But on the flip side, we're like, well, the enemy comes in and tries to attack because he knows a little bit of something, or maybe he sneak peeked into my future, as they say, or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like, what do you think about when it comes to those two ideas? And what has helped you find peace, I guess, in the midst of those two ideas?
Right. I felt like from a very young age, there was the devil just trying to take me out, trying to silence me, trying to, make my self-esteem just really small so that he could just take me out. And any mistake that I made, I just felt like, that's it. I'm done. There's nothing else. I blew it. And so for me, I had to learn that no, God does not expect perfection. The only perfect person was Jesus, and that role is taken, and none of us can achieve that. We have sin. We have this problem that we're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna fall flat, and it's all about picking yourself up and letting Jesus pick you up and let you continue on your story. And it's okay that you have this failure in your story. That's okay. It's part of your story, and it's going to make you stronger in the future. I always thought failure meant the end, but no, it doesn't. It means you're still learning and you're still growing, and you're going to get stronger and closer to God because he's just growing you into this person that you're supposed to be. And so I do feel like I had Satan trying to silence me and take me out. And now I can see why. God gave me this story, these ways that he's revealed himself to me over and over again, that I am just on fire for God. And I want to speak about it to anybody who will listen. And I can see the devil. It just makes me smile a little bit. The devil just, oh man, I failed.
Again, yes, spoiled again. As always. But yeah, I mean, well, I'm glad. I mean, you sound very victorious. You sound like, again, at peace, like there's joy and all these different types of things. I don't know if you feel in your heart that you're the confident woman that you've always wanted to be, but you sound and look it to me, ma'am. So I'm sure the audience are seeing that as well. And so I'm happy, man. I'm happy for you. I'm glad that, this is the testimony versus the alternative,
Right.
And so not say, where do you see things going now, or something, but I guess I would love to, hear like any thoughts that you have, that you want to, anything that you wanted to come here and definitely let people know. Right. And then I also want to hear like what you kind of see for yourself when it comes to the future, or, things that we should be looking out for when it comes to
right. Well, I was always intimidated because I had this plan for my life. I was going to be a straight A student. I was going to go to college. I was going to play volleyball. I was going to get married. I was going to have children. And I did those things. And God blessed me by allowing me to do those things. But then it was like, now what? Oh my goodness, I have no plans. And so I am learning to be in a place of peace and letting God lead instead of me leading and me saying, no, I'm going to do this and this and this. I'm just open, and I'm just here, and I'm surrendered, and I'm saying, Lord, you take me where you want me. I never in a million years would have thought that I would be where I am. So clearly you have the best plan possible. And so, just show me how you want me, what you want me to do. I'm here. If you want me to speak, I will speak. And, if I can even help one person, to have hope and to have the alternative just demolished, that is worth it. That is worth it. And so I don't really have a plan right now. I'm just loving the stay-at-home mom life, and I'm supporting my kids through what they're doing, basketball and violin and track. And it's very much, I have the little monster on my shoulder still. And so I feel like my job right now is to, do the therapy, do the psychiatrist, stay healthy, so that I can pour my story and my testimony into my children for whatever they're going to face one day.
Man, listen, first of all, you can go ahead and get out of my heart and mind, because I feel like I say this stuff all the time. That's where I'm at in my life. And sometimes it feels crazy to be like, whatever you want to do, Lord. Like, because I've seen, it's like, you can have all the plans, right? And then guys be like, technically it's my plan, whatever. And so, I got general things, of course I'm like, okay, there's still certain goals I want to reach, different stuff like that. But I'm like, as they say, riding the wave or whatever God wants to do of faith, right? Riding the wave of faith. And it may sound crazy to people, but I totally relate. Wait, everything you just said now are things that I have been saying over the past few months or over the past few years, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's the most freeing place to be. I'm like, well, Lord, whatever you want to do. And you just see amazing things happening in your life. And you're like, here I am talking to you now again.
Right.
Because of this way, right, wide and wave of faith.
Yep.
So I guess that was a little bit heartwarming, a little confirmation for me. I'm like, you know what? Okay, all right. Yep. I'm on the right track, it seems. But yeah, it's a blessing. This is true. I'm glad that we were able to chit chat today.
Yeah.
And I know whatever the Lord has in store for you. Obviously, again, powerful story. Whether you write another book or not, right?
Yeah.
But I hope and pray that you continue to share your testimony, because that alone is very powerful as well. And I guess I'm excited to see what's next for you, ma'am.
Thank you.
For those that are, interested in learning more about you and finding your books and things like that, where should they go?
Yes. Okay. And so I have a Facebook page called My Little OCD Monster, and they can follow me. And I'm going to put podcasts up there as I do them so that people can hear my testimony and really connect with me and my book. As far as my book, it's called My Little Monster, and it's on Amazon. And I'm going to have a website made because the second book, I'm taking a step into the unknown and doing a little more marketing this time. And so they're going to be creating a website for me, and it's going to be called My Little OCD Monster as well, but it's not made yet.
Okay. Well, we'll be on the lookout. If you, have any updates or things like that, let us know. Just send it over, and we'll make sure we'll put that out and everything like that. I appreciate you for stopping by. Is there anything else you want to share with us before you go?
To God be the glory. There's hope.
You know what? You get out my. I say that all the time. Another guy. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you for coming. Thank you so much, and you're welcome back anytime.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for watching the GSL Talk Show, and thank you to Miss Marin Canaday for joining us tonight. I hope that you guys check out her books and everything like that, and stay on the lookout for this lovely woman. Amazing testimony, powerful story, and I hope that you all were encouraged and inspired by her. Have a good night.